Hello, welcome back to Diary of a Creator. So today I am going to be talking about focus, both in terms of what we need to do for focus, but also how we can lose it. And really, this is one of the trickier parts because we are, in essence, working against the egoic mind structure that we have become very familiar with, which is very problem based, very, this isn't what I want, and I'm going to get away from it. But when we are creating and we are bringing things through from our heart, what we actually truly want, we have to be focused on that, not what we don't want, what we do. And so a big part of focus is having a super, super clear vision for what you actually want. And this is a vision that in any moment you can go into. If you think of, as I talk a lot about tension and I guess seeing yourself as where you are at one end of the tension point, which would be your current reality. And then where you're wanting to go is out in front of you. Picture it as a bowling alley, a boat, getting from one side to the other, however best fits you, to really vision and be able to put a bit of a metaphor on your focus. Because this is where you are, but you want your eyes out and you want your energy and you want your focus to be on the end goal as much as you possibly can. Now, obviously, that is the tricky part, and this is the work that I will dive even more into focusing on, because we need to be aware that when we've so firstly we need to have that anchor point. So if you haven't, it was shared in a couple of videos, I'm going to put it at the bottom of this link too. If you don't know what you want, that is where you need to start. You need to start with what your heart actually wants. And so I have a visioning process, which it's about a 30-minute journey. You can go into that. You can go into it as many times as you want. The moment you go into it as many times as you want, you start to realize the same things keep showing up there. That's what your heart wants. And we need to create our vision around this. So this vision for where we want to go needs to be so clear, emotional, and pointed that we can enter into this any moment throughout the day, set our day, making choices around it, visualize it, and actually live in it. Now, you're not going to live in it all the time because you are a human. And particularly if you're new to this journey, this might be the biggest struggle that you have. Because what gets in our way of current reality to where we want to go, it ultimately it's ourselves, but it's our shadows. And when we start kind of moving towards it, you are going to get your ego come up. And the ego is going to try all of its ways to divert you off the path and shift your focus and lose your focus. And if you don't catch it, what the ego will actually end up doing is entirely making you lose your focus to the point where you give up. So you've deemed whatever you're going for is not possible and you've just totally gone off your path. It can happen quicker than you think. Because the way the ego will work and the shadow will work is we have a tendency when we've been pulled into a low to intensify it. And you might know this through experience, I'm sure you do, where you go into a low and then the mindset starts to shift into everything that's low and it almost pulls you even further down. And this is what happens because we've gone into the vibration of the ego and the fear and the safety. The more we sit in it and don't realize we're sitting in it, the more you're going to go in it, and eventually to the point where you've woke up, you go, oh shit, did I even want that? You did, but you lost focus. And we need to become aware of that shadow tendency within us. We must be aware of our core wound area. So whether that is a fear of rejection, a fear of failing, feelings of guilt or shame or avoiding them, of not feeling safe to step out, fear of being persecuted or told you're not good enough. You might have a core wound around relationships, how you show up, abandonment, all of these types of super core wounds. We will be working our whole life really on these. And my core one is rejection. And the thing to remember is that the core wound itself will not just show up in one area of your life. So it might feel like it shows up in particular areas. So for me, rejection has always felt more heightened in relationships, but it will appear across all areas of your life. So I did a exercise as part of the work that I do in the William White Cloud course series, where you basically work through 3 different scenarios and how you sabotage them. And I picked relationships, business, money, and quite literally down to the dot of the exact pattern I do, it was the same. It was the same structure of behavior, sabotaging behavior that I did. No matter what area of my life, it showed up. And underneath it is there's a real avoidance in me. If I sense any form of rejection, I run and I pull. And if you think of me looking down on a boat and I'm going over to the other side, that is like an anchor that will go whoosh and bring me straight back to the shore, because I'm like, abort, abort, abort. I can't do it. I'm going to be rejected. Get out. And that's how it will happen. But I'm aware of that now. Before I was not, and it will have a sneaky way of making you almost believe that what you're afraid of is the true reality. And this is how this works. And so we need to really understand what is underneath our sabotaging behaviors. What is our most common shadow beliefs? Because there is a belief that we are running off of the fear. And this is what will stand in the way of you getting from where you are to where you want to go and actually getting your heart's desires. Because when we all have these beliefs, they are all operating for all of us. It's just how much heat you give to whether it's true or not. Because the only way a belief can derail you is if you let it. And you let it by believing that it's true. And as I was saying before, when you go in a low, you go even lower. That's what's happening. You're actually allowing that belief to be your truth, and you're just proving it, going, oh yeah, and you keep adding to it, and then you just keep going. So these are important things to know, particularly spotting it initially in yourself, which can be a super uncomfortable thing to do. But we really do need to be aware of this tension, and however you like to view it, if the boat works or a bowling alley, just know that as a human being, if you go for what you truly want and you follow your heart, your ego will be trying to divert you. It's nature. Because where you're going, it does not know where you're going. It doesn't like it, and it's going to prefer to take you back to where you were, even if where you were was suffering. So there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that you are failing at or doing particularly different to any other human being on this planet. It's just that potentially you haven't been aware that this tension is going to be playing out, and it plays out for literally everybody. The way we get a handle on this tension is awareness. We need to literally make friends with our shadow to the degree where it almost comes in as a familiar friend. I used to sing the song, "Hello Darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again." That. It's like that. You need to be able to see it coming. And you're not always going to necessarily have the energy or the strength in some moments to really make a different choice and keep your focus. Sometimes you're going to divert off. But so long as you have the awareness, you will always come back, and you will come back when you need to come back. I had a monumental diversion at the beginning of the year for probably 3 or 4 months where I was in it. I had been gripped by the fear of rejection, and it had pulled me off course entirely to the degree where I was like, well, I'm going back into corporate. This is too hard. all of this. It diverted me entirely. But I had enough awareness to get back on track. It took a long time, and you will find this too, because the journey does not go like this. It goes like this, and then it might feel like you're going back, but you are going forward. Because every time you're going into a low, you are increasing your level of awareness of yourself. And so I wanted to talk to 6 most common dysfunctional belief patterns that will be running your sabotage and your procrastination, or literally stopping you from going for what you want. And these aren't the only dysfunctional beliefs. These are just the most common ones. And we also won't be just running one, we will have aspects of different ones, which is why starting with these 6 and really hearing, I'm going to go into more detail around these specifically, because they are deep. Like, there is a lot of understanding that goes underneath these, and by and large these limiting beliefs actually link into the Enneagram personality profiles too. So you could call this personality profiling in essence, but it's understanding the shadow personality that you have and how it is always going to be trying to pull you. And obviously, the more we do the work, the less it's going to do that, because we don't give it as much charge. We start giving the part that we want to more charge, which is why focus comes in too, right? Because if you focus on the parts that you want to bring in more of, naturally the focus will start to lessen on the parts that you don't. But the issue with most people is we're all trying to run away from what we don't want. We're not trying to run towards what we want. We're trying to run away from what we don't. That is the problem. So the parts of us that try and make us run away are the 6 core kind of dysfunctional beliefs. You got the first one, which is super, super common, and it's one that it's my core. A mix of my core is I am not enough. Now, this one is characterized by the overachiever. A lot of corporate burnout, people that keep going are actually running this belief, because in essence, you're running on the belief that your bucket is empty, that you are not enough as you are, and you need to fill it with everything that you can from the outside. And through doing that, you're going to get validated. You're going to be recognized. And the problem is it's a never-ending scale. I call it like a dangling carrot up the top of an escalator. It just never ends. You're just going to keep running. And the issue with this belief is it will be making you run in the wrong direction, because what your heart wants and what you have deemed other people will validate you for will be entirely different. And that is the problem. It will have you running in the wrong direction, and you will have a lot of force to run in that direction. I certainly achieved a shitload in corporate, but that's not my heart's direction. That's entirely an egoic direction. And that is the problem with this one. So that is the telltale sign. You are running in the wrong direction, and you will feel burnt out. You will feel overwhelmed. You will feel frustrated. You will have a void, and you're going to keep chasing. That's a sign to watch out for. Another one is I'm not worthy, or another way of saying it, I'm not lovable. And this will very much, as it suggests, play out particularly in relationships, but equally in monetary value, speaking needs, being able to stand up for what we actually truly want. And this is often characterized by people who overgive. They are the people-pleasing type. And naturally, what will divert them off going for what their heart truly desires is either putting people ahead of them, so they're just totally distracted by other people and what they think and trying to fit in with that, or they've just deemed themselves not worthy of what they want, and they will find ways to pull themselves away from it because they're not worthy, they can't go for that. Another one is I don't belong, and this one is characterized with the fear of rejection, judgment, and acceptance for who we are. And so this goes 2 ways. People will try their hardest to fit in through that, and to a degree, because it is so tribal in us to belong, a lot of people do have a sense and a feeling that they don't belong. And so this will run for quite a few people. It will be core for some, but really like an underlying one for most of us, where we're always seeking to fit in, to be validated. And obviously, if we're going for our heart's desires and it fits outside of what our family, friends, our current environment of people have learnt is true about us or accept as a path, naturally the diversion is going to keep trying to pull us back to a path that is going to help us to belong, rather than a path that might potentially pull us away from the familiarity of where we've belonged before. That one is a super triggering one for me and has been one I've had to address on this path too. But this also, people in I don't belong can also do their damnedest to look like they don't belong but they'll always associate into a minority group and label themselves as different. They stand out as that. But the issue with that is it becomes over-identified with being different, when what you're trying to be different about might not even be what is actually you. And it starts to kind of pull us off course. Another common one, which will be running for everyone, because if you're in a Western society, well, actually, no, if you're in any society, it's scarcity. It's not available to me. This is honestly programmed into how we grow up and operate in the world and have competitive structures and monetary systems, and you have the rich and the poor. And naturally, what this breeds within us is an idea that there is not enough to go around. And if you add the personal layer onto that, if it's not available to me, you could be running poverty mindsets. It could be something around capabilities, resources, whatever it is, you have deemed that what you're going for is just not available. It's not possible. And the sabotage will start to come in there, where the dream almost feels too there and like, oh, I can't have that. And yeah, that one will definitely be running. The fifth one is I am powerless. Now, this is a very victim orientated belief. And in essence, what it will do is assign power outside of you. It will assign, and again, to a degree from our society, we've got power structures at play, but someone who's really heavily running this belief will assign all of their authority outside of them. Naturally, what that means is when it comes to creating change and driving your life for what you actually want, this is going to divert you entirely, because you've deemed that you don't have the power to go for what you want. And the way you will sabotage is, you might already know how to get there, but you'll look outside of you for someone else to tell you how to get there, because you've deemed them to have more power. They're more powerful than you. You could stay in structures that take away your power to create what you want. You will end up in dynamics that will do that. For me, I have come to the awareness that this was a belief I was running, and I found myself going deliberately into structures that were going to take my power away. And coming into the awareness that the power is within that is the journey, really. But it will be very victim orientated of, I can't do that because, and it will always be an outside authority that will sabotage you away. And the final one is I am not safe. Now, this is a bit twofold, because you've got I'm not safe to be me. So there is a lack of trust in your ability in being who you are, because there's fears there. There's fears of persecution, there's fears of rejection, there's fears of abandonment, and all of these things. And naturally, what that will do is it will pull people off course, because they don't want to be seen, even though they probably actually do want to be seen, but they are very afraid of being seen. And that will be typified if you're running that. The other way this one comes in is just lack of trust for the environment, for humanity, for people. This can go as large. It's centered around trust. You might not even trust the universe. You might not trust yourself. You might not trust others, but it's a theme of trust running through here, and generally just feeling safe to do that. And so those are really the 6 most common ones, and the way these will divert us if we don't know which ones we are running. And so you're not going to just be running one either. You will be running a bit of a combination of some of them together. But if you are curious to start understanding how you are falling out on these beliefs, I have a quiz that I created a little while back, which is really formed around the behaviors and actions that people would typically take if they're running this belief. And so it is a 10-minute quiz where you will just answer based on your beliefs, your tendencies, your behaviors and fears, and you will get an indication across the 6 of which ones are more dominant for you than others. There is also a free unpack after that, a session with me where I'll actually be like, okay, what does this even mean? Because knowing the belief is just the start. It's really digging into then go, okay, how does this belief actually show up for me? Like, what does my mind tend to say? What does my body feel? What are the triggering situations that it comes up in? How has it operated before? What has it pulled me back from? What's the fear underneath it? And that can go as deep and as deep and as deep as you want. But I will leave it there because that is a lot. I am going to dive further into this because these are the sneaky blocks that keep everyone away from their dreams. So this work is important if you are really wanting to live from the heart and truly live a soul-led life. Is it easy? Fuck no. But it is rewarding. So I will leave it there. Thank you.